There's a very old, very dangerous belief that we all cling to, the idea that once we close our front door, we are finally untouchable. We treat our homes like fortresses, convinced that thick walls and heavy locks are enough to keep the darkness out. But I'm here to tell you that privacy is often just an illusion we agree to believe in. Today's story isn't just about a house, it is a chilling reminder of how easily our sense of security can be dismantled, piece by piece, by a stranger who simply refuses to look away. We are about to walk through a case that will make you question every shadow in your room, and by the end, you might realize that while you are watching this screen, something else might be watching you. Everyone spends their life hunting for that perfect spot, you know? That one true sanctuary where the noise and chaos of the outside world are strictly forbidden from entering. This family truly believed they had crossed the finish line when they bought that grand, historic home on a quiet, tree-lined street. It feels a lot like finally making a solid, long-term investment that you just know will pay off, a physical trophy for all those years of grinding and saving. But life has a twisted, and sometimes cruel, way of reminding us that even the most beautiful castles can turn into golden cages if we are too busy admiring the walls to check the ground beneath us. When you finally achieve something massive, it is only natural to let your guard down and take a deep breath. You relax, you get comfortable, and you start to ignore that primal instinct that kept you sharp and alert while you were still climbing the ladder. It is exactly like walking down a dark, empty road and choosing to ignore the heavy footsteps behind you, simply because you desperately want to believe you are safe in your own town. But, my friend, it is in that comfortable silence that you unwittingly become a silent witness to your own vulnerability, while something, or someone, starts watching your every move from the shadows. The vibe in that neighborhood seemed flawless, the kind of place that looks like a movie set where nothing bad ever happens. The lawns were perfectly manicured, the fences were white, and everything seemed to be exactly where it belonged. However, just like a shiny, polished apple can be completely rotten at the core, that visual perfection was hiding a dense, watching shadow. You never really expect a living nightmare to introduce itself through a simple piece of paper in the mailbox on a sunny afternoon, but that is precisely where the terror decided to say hello. You know that feeling when the hair on the back of your neck stands up for no reason? That was the exact sensation the moment the first envelope was pulled from the pile of junk mail and bills. It looked innocent enough, thick and white, but it carried a strange weight, almost like holding a loaded gun without the safety on. In life, we are trained to fear the loud and obvious threats, like a car crash or a shouting stranger, but true fear often arrives quietly, sealed with a simple lick of glue. It is a harsh lesson in awareness, teaching us that sometimes the most dangerous things in our lives do not look like monsters at first glance. They look just like ordinary, everyday objects waiting to detonate. As the letter was opened, the atmosphere in the room shifted instantly, dropping the temperature by 10 degrees. The words inside weren't just written, they were crafted with a chilling precision that sent cold shivers down everyone's spine. It wasn't a standard welcome to the neighborhood note. It was a declaration of ownership and surveillance, asking disturbing questions about the young blood brought into the house. It is terrifying how quickly a warm, happy home can turn into a crime scene in your mind, forcing you to question every shadow in the corner. You start to realize that your safe haven has been compromised by something totally unexplained, and that feeling of security you paid so much for? It vanishes like smoke in the wind. Suddenly, the windows that let in that beautiful sunlight felt more like exposed lenses for someone else's camera. The family found themselves peeking through the blinds, scanning the tree line and the cars passing by, realizing they had become the main characters in a twisted show they never auditioned for. It creates a suffocating pressure, the kind that makes you double-check the deadbolt 3 times before bed, even though you know a lock can't stop a pair of eyes that are always watching. You are no longer just living there, you are performing for an audience of one, and the silence of the house begins to scream, setting the stage for a psychological game that was only just beginning. Imagine, for a second, reading a script of your own private life written by a total stranger. That is exactly what started happening as the letters kept coming, each one more specific and invasive than the last. The writer didn't just know they had moved in, they knew nicknames, they knew daily routines, and terrifyingly, they knew exactly which bedrooms the children were sleeping in. It violates the sanctuary of the mind in a way that is hard to describe, cutting deeper than a physical break-in because it attacks your peace, not just your stuff. It serves as a grim reminder that information is power, and when someone else holds all the cards about your life, you feel naked and defenseless, stripping away every layer of comfort you thought you had. Paranoia is a tricky and hungry beast. It eats you from the inside out until you can't recognize your own reality. The family began to look at everyone differently. The nice old lady next door, the mailman, even the people walking their dogs, wondering if that friendly smile was actually a mask hiding a dark secret. You become a silent witness to your own mental unraveling, analyzing every wave and every greeting for a hidden threat or a clue. It is a brutal practical lesson in how fragile trust really is. Once it is cracked by the unexplained, it is nearly impossible to glue back together, leaving you isolated on an island of suspicion. The nights quickly became the hardest part of this ordeal. When the sun goes down, the logic of the day fades away, and the shadow of fear grows tall and heavy in the hallways. Every creak of a floorboard sounds like a heavy footstep, and the wind against the window sounds like a finger tapping on the glass. You stop living and start merely surviving within your own walls, waiting with bated breath for the next message to drop like a bomb. It creates a state of constant, high-alert tension that drains the soul, leaving the family desperate for help and forcing them to turn to the only people who might be able to stop it. We grow up believing that if trouble knocks, we just dial a number and the cavalry arrives to restore order to our sanctuary. The family reached out to the authorities, handing over the disturbing evidence with trembling hands, hoping for a swift and decisive end to the madness. But the law is a rigid machine, built for concrete crimes like broken windows or stolen cars, not for the fluid, shapeless terror of psychological warfare. It is a hard pill to swallow when you realize that without a fingerprint, a face, or a physical attack, the shield of protection we rely on is full of holes. It teaches you that sometimes you are truly on your own, forced to trust your instinct when the official rulebook runs out of useful pages. The investigation turned into a chase after a phantom, a frustrating hunt where every promising lead evaporated into thin air. DNA tests came back negative or inconclusive, and the dark shadow looming over the house seemed to mock the detectives' best efforts to pin it down. It is maddening because the enemy isn't some distant monster living in a cave. It feels like it is right there, breathing down your neck, yet completely invisible to the naked eye. This lack of a physical suspect turns the unexplained into something almost supernatural in your mind, making you question if you are fighting a brilliant criminal or something far more ancient and sinister attached to the land itself. Meanwhile, life outside continued with an eerie, rhythmic normalcy that felt like a slap in the face to their suffering. Neighbors waved, cars drove by, and the sun kept shining, all while a dark surveillance operation was unfolding right under everyone's noses. You find yourself standing there, a mute observer to the hypocrisy of the suburban dream, realizing that a friendly smile can hide 1,000 bad intentions. It forces you to look at the world with a new set of eyes, understanding that evil doesn't always wear a ski mask. Sometimes, it wears the face of the person who lives right next door, blending in perfectly until the moment they decide to strike. In the end, the family realized that no amount of brick and mortar is worth the price of your sanity, forcing them to make the heartbreaking decision to abandon their dream. Walking away from a sanctuary you built with your own sweat and tears feels like a defeat, a surrender to an invisible enemy that never even showed its face. It is a profound life lesson that teaches us that safety isn't about four walls and a roof. It is a feeling deep in your gut. And once that is gone, no lock in the world is strong enough to bring it back. They didn't just sell a piece of property, they bought back their freedom, escaping a cage that was slowly closing in on them. However, the physical move is the easy part. It is the mental relocation that is nearly impossible to achieve. Even miles away, in a different town, the cold shivers still find a way to creep up their spines whenever the mail arrives or a phone rings late at night. Trauma has a nasty habit of lingering like a bad smell, rewriting your instincts so that you view the entire world as a potential threat rather than a playground. You learn to live with a permanent question mark hanging over your head, constantly wondering if the surveillance has truly stopped or if it has simply changed its location, following you like a ghost in the machine. The most disturbing part of this entire saga is that the puzzle remains unfinished, with pieces missing that may never be found. The person, or thing, that wrote those letters is still out there, walking free, blending into the crowd at the grocery store or the coffee shop. The house stands there today, majestic and quiet, a silent witness to a mystery that refuses to die, keeping its secrets locked tight within its walls. It leaves us staring into the dark, uncomfortable void of the unexplained, forced to accept that some stories don't have happy endings, they just have endings, leaving a shadow over the neighborhood that the sun can never quite chase away. So, after walking through the twisted corridors of this nightmare, what are you going to do with this heavy knowledge? It is easy to treat this as just another scary story to tell around a campfire, but a wise mind knows better. The real takeaway here isn't to live in fear, shaking behind your sofa, but to sharpen your awareness in a world that is constantly trying to put you to sleep. In an age where we post our entire lives online for strangers to see, we are all inviting a watcher into our lives without even realizing it. Take a hard look at your digital footprint, lock your real doors, and trust that gut feeling when it screams that something is wrong. It is the only reliable alarm system you have. Now, I have a serious question for you, and I want you to be honest in the comments below. If you received that first letter, knowing everything you know now, would you have stayed to fight for your dream home, or would you have packed your bags and ran before the sun went down? I want to see how many survivors are watching this right now. If you want to continue exploring the darkest corners of reality and sharpening your instincts against the unknown, make sure you destroy that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You don't want to be the one left in the dark when the next file is opened here on Silent Witness.